The top 10 Oculus Quest 2 games in late 2023. In this list, I'm going to go into detail for each game in this list so you can go buy some more hours of fun for the Quest 2. The first disclaimer which I must say is that in this video I excluded Quest 2 games known as must plays and must buys so that I can show you my personal, specifically personal, favourite games that are more indie, interesting and not necessarily a AAA title. Just for completeness, these are the games I have left off. Beat Saber, because you should have this by now, even if you don't think it's going to be for you, it will be. Trust me. The Vader Immortal series, this is a full Star Wars franchise in VR, and as I love Star Wars, it was one of the coolest experiences I've had on the Quest and Quest 2. Finally, I missed out Superhot. It's another game which is basically a requirement for every VR user to play through because of its interesting mechanics with time. However, personally, I've only played it through twice because I found it was a little boring to go back to, although my first playthrough was great. Okay, so with that precursor out of the way, let's get into the list. Firstly, in the 10th spot, I have a game which you might not build up a long time in, but it's 100% worth it to show family and friends. I'm of course talking about Richie's Plank Experience, in which you ride a lift to the top of a skyscraper and must walk along a plank sticking out over the city. It is a terrifying experience for any first-time user, and was the experience I tried on the HTC Vive 4 years ago and led me to buy the Quest 1,547 days. I'm still yet to find a non-VR user who can confidently yeet themselves off without being terrified. Honestly, I love this game, but beware, it does require a lot of space. One, for the game itself, but two, because your friends and family will undoubtedly jump into or smash something around the house. Believe me, I've had everything from actually diving head first off the plank like a bungee jump and all the way to running into walls. Just before we move on to the 9th spot, I did want to mention that it does have some other modes. A painting mode where you can fly around the city, a missile clearing mode where you fly into missiles to knock them out of the sky, and finally a secret horror mode which is terrifying and yet still super cool. Although as someone who hates spiders, this game can be slightly jarring at times, but of course this is only in the horror mode. Moving into the 9th spot, we have Pistol Whip. It was one of my first games I ever bought and is still a class game. It has two newish campaigns which are epic, and it also has superb visuals and songs to vibe out to. I don't find myself going back to it very often anymore, but when I first purchased the game, I basically didn't leave it until the following Christmas. It's basically like if a John Wick simulator hooked up with Beat Saber and plopped out an epilepsy-inducing child. Well, that's what Pistol Whip is. It's a super smooth, well organised and thought out game from quite a large VR developer who always makes epic titles. So if you haven't played this already, it has to be your next purchase. In the 8th position, I put Gorilla Tag. I know it's going to be a seriously hit and miss title for some, because there are an abundance of screaming children and a lack of anyone of sane mind, but the core gameplay and settings are actually super fun. Personally, I played this loads with a select group of friends and we had bags of fun tagging each other and learning new skills. It is also completely free, so if you're not interested in it, then maybe I can persuade you to give it a try, even if it's not your cup of tea. The most interesting part of this game is the motion, which uses your hands to climb, walk and jump. It's seriously amazing, but can lead to a little jankiness at some times. The developer is very cool and took heavy inspiration for the movement from Echo Arena. It used to be a very cool esports-esque title in which you play a similar game to Tron's disc matches, but in zero gravity. For my 7th spot, I have put in another awesome free title, which is perfect for hanging out with friends and enjoying all the wonders of VR. All I need to explain to you is that it is basically the metaverse from Ready Player One, but if you turned graphics to 0, clunkiness to 100, and anime waifus to 1 million. But all jokes aside, actually no, that genuinely is what it is. The game is not just one game, but a series of community-built worlds which you can explore like real life. My friends and I had an amazing time chilling in different worlds and exploring what VR has to offer. I remember I played for about 2 to 4 hours with one mate at a theme park, and it no joke felt I was with the friend at a theme park and we were exploring all the different rides all afternoon. Although a word of warning, it is primarily a social VR application, so it obviously has a bad reputation for some very sus things, so make sure you learn how safety features, muting, microphone access all work in the game before you hop into your first world. This can allow you to have basically a private oasis with all your friends and no one else, or a completely public experience depending on what you prefer. Number 6. It's a very controversial title, which in my eyes has a reputation that is thoroughly undeserved. Star Wars Tales of the Galaxy's Edge was a game which appeared to be continuing the wonder and awe left by Vader Immortal. However, due to a far from compelling storyline, most hardcore VR personalities hated on the game. It just wasn't as good as Vader Immortal. However, I would completely disagree. While it certainly isn't as good as Vader Immortal, it is still a crazy action-packed Star Wars game with excellent graphics for the Quest 2. It has great gunplay and an overall amazing adventure. So if you like Star Wars, it is a must buy, and if you don't like Star Wars, it's still a super title which beats 99% of all other Quest 2 games. It just doesn't beat the best one, but that's okay in my eyes. I found myself being sucked into the game and all of its smaller storylines with ease. Although one thing I would mention is that it's defo necessary to buy the DLC if you want all the epic extra adventures, which personally I think actually make the game good. Just before we continue with the list, it would be awesome if you could subscribe. It really helps out and allows me to stay motivated to continue creating content for you guys. Okay, so moving on to my pick for 5th. We have Population 1 in this spot. It's a surprisingly good game for what it appears to be like from the outside. While it may not have the best graphics in the world, it's wrought with jank and is plain as day a copy of Fortnite. It's still super fun and puts lots of players into a large map to compete for the win. Each and every kill is satisfying. Oh wait, no, that came out wrong, crap. Well, that's me added to another list. Anyway, it's a VR Battle Royale game. I don't think I need to explain much more due to this category of gaming being milked to the end of the universe on flat screen gaming. The one thing I would add is that it does receive constant updates and they're actually often huge. For example, the other day I came back to the game and suddenly there were community made maps, game modes and so much more. It's crazy what they're doing with it, especially as it was made free a few weeks ago. Swiftly moving from a battle royale game with arcade-like weaponry to a CSGO-esque shooter with realistic gunplay and tons of epic game modes. Pavlov's Shack is basically the COD or the CSGO of the Quest 2 world. It was my favourite game on the Quest and is now just outside the podium positions. It is a very infrequent updates that literally make everything better when they do arrive, and they're usually super hype and exciting. It also has hundreds of weapon choices with attachments and World War II weapons as well. It is nearly the perfect VR shooter in my opinion. Lastly, while I do love Pavlov's Shack because it is completely free, I've not tried Onward and Contractors, which many people claim to be just as good, albeit different from Pavlov. I think Contractors might be slowly edging ever closer to achieving the title as the best VR shooter, so maybe look into Contractors if you're interested, but once again, as I haven't played it, I can't comment on its comparison to Pavlov. Okay, now we're on to the podium positions. So, in the bronze medal spot, I have placed Red Matter 2. It's a stunning sequel to the already beautiful yet thrilling title, Red Matter. but it ups the ante in every way possible. Red Matter 2 is by far the best and most realistic looking game on the Oculus Quest 2, and nothing really compares in my opinion. Vertical Robot have employed some magic to get this working on a phone strapped to your face, and honestly they deserve as much praise as possible for this fantastic title. But other than its unbelievable graphics, it also has a fantastic story campaign that is scary, fun, thrilling and action-packed, all within a game that is primarily a puzzle game. If you love escape rooms, you will adore Red Matter 2, as it is basically a series of breaking in and out of labs, weapon research areas and so many awesome places. It's a game everyone should play and it's honestly a breathtaking title. Moving on to the silver medalist! For this spot on the podium, I'm choosing probably the most hated Quest 2 game ever released. I'm talking about Bone Lab. It's a physics-based combat adventure in which you can be as creative as possible in your attacks. It's super fun, engaging game which had me hooked from the get-go and is certainly deserving of the number 2 spot in my opinion. So why is this so-called perfect Quest 2 game hated so much? Well, similarly to the hate behind Star Wars Tales of Galaxy's Edge, it promised to rival some of the best games ever made. You see, as Galaxy's Edge tried to be better than Vader Immortal and fans wanted as much, when it just fell short of those expectations, it was met with lots of disparaging comments. However, it was still an amazing game, just not as amazing as everyone had hoped. Bone Lab's story is nearly the exact same, as it was the most hyped VR game ever made, due to the fact that it was made by the developers of Boneworks. Therefore, when Stress Level Zero, the developers, said that Bone Lab was going to be better than Boneworks, which is arguably one of the best, if not the best, PC VR title, everyone hoped for so much. However, fans were super disappointed as the game story was very incohesive and nowhere near the standard of Boneworks, even while the combat and physics may have been slightly improved. Therefore, it got loads of unnecessary hate and has still not recovered. However, this game is so good, I can't stress that enough. It is. Just because it's not as long or as story driven as its big brother, it doesn't mean it's not a good game. It's by far the most technically developed game on the Quest, and it's seriously another Red Matter 2-esque title, in which I can't help but think they used magic to get it to function on such a small standalone device. Talking about titles rivaling their big brothers, Into the Radius is a game ported from PC VR and quickly became my go-to title on the Quest. It's a super long campaign which has you exploring a deserted wasteland in search of food, ammo, weapons, gear and scientific equipment. It makes you uncover the secrets of an apocalypse in Russia to find out what is actually going on. It's terrifying and requires skill while still being engaging, beautiful, graphically gorgeous, but yet a little rough and janky around the edges. This game is effectively a real adventure simulator. You must conserve stamina, hunger, fight off terrifying monsters in the dead of night, and do all the small time consuming things you would have to do if it were real life. I have lots of videos on my channel playing this one, and as of recording, I've put in over 60 hours into this masterpiece. It's certainly not every single person's cup of tea, as it is seriously frightening at times, not because it's a true horror game, because it's not, but just because of the creepy atmosphere and feeling of complete isolation and loneliness while walking across the bogs of Balotki village or the huge factory or even the botanical gardens in Kolkhoz. It has huge open maps and everything behaves like it would in real life. Okay, so there you have it. Those are my personal picks for the top 10 Quest 2 games, while not including the classics. If you disagreed with my rankings, drop what you would have put in the comments below. Or anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you don't want to miss any gameplay from any of the titles shown today, hit that subscribe button to be notified of my next video. Goodbye.